Hello, everybody. I want to thank Sasha for inviting me to join this meeting, and warmly thanks the wonderful organization of the man. I changed a little the title of my presentation to underline the new way of thinking I would like to enlighten on south of France. Mediterranean Gaul was for a long time considered apart from the rest of Europe for the early Iron Age. Historiography has artificially, I think, opposed an Alsatian world whose contours were defined on the basis of a few archaeological sites, now at the end of the 19th century and the first half of the 20th century, without taking into account the work of the second half of the 20th century, when most of the sites in the south of France were studied. Thus, the paradigm of a Celtic world divided in the early Iron Age into several spaces, not directly connected, prevailed for a long time, and still prevail for some researchers. However, the archaeological research of recent years began to reveal a different face and lead us to reconsider certain ancient paradigms in order to reflect on another vision of the population of Mediterranean Gaul in the first Iron Age. While research in the south and in the north developed different trajectories, focusing on the particularity of each field of study, the hypothesis concerning the societies of these two regions took two different directions: the concept of princely residences in continental Europe and that of less hierarchical, almost egalitarian societies of soldier farmers in Mediterranean Celtic. Here again, new data encourage us to propose other reading of society and also invite us to revisit old data and also ancient texts from Greek and Roman authors, I think, in order to change the interpretation and propose a vision resonating with the European level. I would like to take the opportunity of this Congress to examine the hypothesis that the model of princely residences, with all the limitation and caution needed regarding this model, could be applied, or could have been applied to Mediterranean Celts, and that it could be operational for this region, as defined by Kimi. Indeed, we've got Mediterranean imports in settlement, a lot, and also in graves. And we have in the south some rich graves with gold and silver. We've got also remarkable geographical position for exchange and network of sites in relation to each other. During the Iron Age, the south of France had definitely some particularities: an early, strong, and sustainable integration into Mediterranean trade, an equally early, significant, and durable urbanization phenomenon with very close settlement, but also a strong structure and long-lasting network with the rest of the European continent until the end of the Iron Age, despite the regional particularities and the link with Mediterranean dynamics. These Mediterranean dynamics have often been highlighted to the point of dominating everything else, particularly in the study of artifacts. For example, the study of ceramics, imported and local, largely dominates that of other type of artifact, and particularly the study of metal artifact, which has only been developed in the last 15 years or so. Moreover, the excavation concerned mainly settlement and not graves, settlement occupied over a long period without any major change, and above all, with little social differentiation inside the houses within these early urbanized spaces. For example, as you can see from these plans, the houses are almost all the same size and do not differ from each other. The furniture studied, mainly ceramics, as I just said, is the same almost everywhere. Import of amphora and tableware from Greek or Etruscan world are widely present in all the houses. Almost no grave was known, so no elite seems to be present, and the theory of an egalitarian, communitarian societies developed, with the idea that aristocracy appears in the south only at the end of the late Iron Age. The social functioning would have been that of the big men, then eventually chiefdom. However, ancient texts do mention at least one king in the south of France in the early Iron Age. We even know his name. This is Nanos, the father of Gyptis, who married the leader of the Greek expedition, Protis, thus enabling him to found Massalia, thanks to the permission of the king. The story was known at the 4th century BC because Aristotle knew it, and it could sound authentic or strongly linked to local reality, because the Greek could never have imagined that a young girl would choose her husband in the way it is told. Recently, our colleague Jean Chaussery-Lapré proposed that the capital of the Segobrian kingdom would have been the site of Saint-Blaise, Marseille being found at the end of the territory, which obviously is very logical. The site of Saint-Blaise has indeed been occupied since the end of the 7th century BC, as shown by the imported ceramics, but also by the metal furniture studied by Benjamin Girard in his PhD. Recent excavation has confirmed the large occupation in the early Iron Age, the red point on the plain, and the presence of a fortification at this time, which will be doubled by a wall made of large cut stone in the Hellenistic period. Recent excavation have confirmed the successive settlement of late Bronze Age settlement, then a very important sanctuary with stone stables around, then a vast Celtic agglomeration at least 5 hectares, with an imposing fortification which was established the last third of the 7th century BC and continued until, and the site go on until its military destruction by the Romans about 125. This site was connected with several other nearby occupations and must also have exploited the nearby salt ponds. Traces of craft production, including coral production, were also found. Unfortunately, we know very few graves in this area, but we can mention in another part of Provence the tumulus of Pertuis. This is a famous burial mound for the often known for the bronze onokoe that served as an ossuary, but it also contained part of a cuirass and a toilet bag. Recently, an anthropological study has concluded that the dead people was young, under 20 years old, and this point maybe could be linked to the presence of hereditary elite. Another teenager graves is known on the other side of the Rhône, between Montpellier and Béziers. A young people, around 14 years old, was buried with Etruscan amphora and cantharos, and also a Greek cup, and some metal weapons. So let's go on the other side of the Rhône Delta. The site of Le Quellar was discovered very recently, precisely in the year 2000. But it is a very important settlement of the early Iron Age, occupied since the end of the 7th century BC and fortified since the half of the 6th century BC. This large wall, you can see, with stone base, 1 meter high, and mud elevation. In a second phase, the wall was rebuilt totally in stone. The site is located at the confluence of the Ristre and the Rhône. I don't know if you see the... Hopla. Yes. I just want to show you Le Quellar and the two rivers. Two coastal rivers flowing into the lagoon, which was itself connected to the Rhône Delta. It was thus connected to many contemporary sites in the sector and with the Rhône Valley. On this picture, on this slide, some picture of the fortification and the Mediterranean goods which arrived in this harbor. The wall with stone base and mud preserved, Etruscan and Greek amphora, coral, Attic pottery, bronze vessel, cut stone. You can see the beautiful carved lintel, very rare pieces, and even more rare graffiti on Attic pottery, which dates from the middle of the 5th century BC and with the Celtic name Subritos. Oh. The Greek amphora, Massalian amphora. The trade with Massalia was very, very important in this settlement. We go further on the west. Here is the site of Lacou-Gourlude, the native settlement existing before the foundation of Latara Harbor, just far from 1 kilometer. You see on the little map. The site is occupied from the 7th century BC till the beginning of the 5th century, with strong development and implication in the Mediterranean trade, as shown the map dispersion of import pottery. It covers more than 20 hectares during those times and was fortified with a rampart and a deep ditch on the plateau, as you can see on the virtual evocation. It has been explored thanks to preventive excavation led by the INRAP. And the virtual representation, you can see it on the website of the Latara Museum. Other preventive works by the INRAP around Latara allowed the discovery of some graves from the early Iron Age, the 5th century BC. This is cremation, so we have only fragments, but Sasha demonstrates how they were important. There is gold and silver jewelry, Mediterranean gods, and sign of power. We can speak, I think, of elite burial all around the settlement of Latara. I won't have the time to speak of all the other settlements going on till the Pyrenees, but they are definitely important. Area of Rusino near the Pyrenees, of Naro, Montlorez, Pechemao, and even of Maillac. We can notice their very regular dispersion, in fact, at the outlet of each large river valley. I can speak of everything, but I want to take attention on some graves already new, because published a long time ago from in this area, mainly the area of Maillac. This is the grave of Cornoloso between Maillac and Naro. And there is several isolated graves that clearly belong to elite. Mediterranean importation, weapons for war, but also for social prestige. Not only warrior, but chieftain, maybe little king of local kingdom that ancient texts speak about some years later, some century later. We also have a chariot burial, unfortunately not well studied and not well restored. We saw with Sasha also how it was important to restore all the little pieces, but there are chariot burial too. And a last one, beautiful graves, I only mention, but I think it's one of the most extraordinary. Las Peiros at Couffoulens is also near Maillac and this area. And weapons and Mediterranean goods, and this extraordinary piece of Iron Age art, for which we know one narrow parallel on the other side of the Pyrenean in Teruel. You see it's the same pieces with just a different animal represent. It's maybe a piece linked to the Iberian area and Phoenician area, but an animal, different animal in the south of France. At the end, I would like to get some light on a very important site of the early Iron Age in the south of France, Béziers. It belonged to the very particular sector of the Hérault Valley where many first Iron Age sites are known, some of which will disappear at the beginning of the Second Iron Age, like Bessin-la-Monédière, which could be a princely site, or a site related to princely site or chiefdom. In this sector, there is Anserune also, another important site, but I think especially Béziers. This is a particularly important and remarkable site, which remains, I think, too far away from the reflection on the relation between continental and Mediterranean cats, because the very particular characteristic of the site have led the searcher to another interpretation, that of a Greek settlement parallel to Marseille, and which would be linked to the Rhodians. This hypothesis is much discussed, even rejected by a large part of the scientific community. It has especially led researchers, I think, to eliminate other hypotheses and to neglect the material that does not fit into the theory that they support. Notably, the metal material, very often neglected in the south, but particularly in Béziers. The town covers more than 30 hectares and revealed a lot of Mediterranean goods, but also metal artifacts and craft activity, pottery, you see the kiln on the screen, but also metal craft. The town is settled on a remarkable places, as you see on the screen, dominating a river, the Herb, and I think the place is very similar to Mont-la-Soie and the Oinebourg. There is also a more little settlement in the neighbor, so many connection with this at central place. I think it is a very central place in Béziers. The material discovered. Okay. Yeah. I just remind you that we are in the area of the first contact and Mediterranean vases with the Greek people, with some pottery found in graves belonging to the second half of the 7th century, so before the Massalia foundation. These graves have been discovered in Agde, but also more recently near Béziers. It's the Skyphos from Courondelle near Béziers. It's also preventive archaeology that found that kind of cup, probably coming from Sicily area. Inside the town of Béziers, there are many data on strong relation with a Greek word. That explains why the searcher think it was a Greek settlement. There is, for example, many oil lamps from the early Iron Age, the 6th and 5th century BC. Some Greek model, some Greek ones, but also some local production on Greek models. And also there is piece of architecture in mud, earth, with Greek motif, but also this way. I don't think the picture is very clear, but there is some horses and warrior that are drawn. There is also a big production of coral with craft production of that kind of material. And there is also in Béziers an important production of double timbal fibulae with some pieces that prove that were local craft. These pieces are not restored, as you've seen, like often in the south of France, but that kind of fibula had also been discovered in different sites in the south of France with a particular statue, Saint-Blaise, I mentioned it just a minute, and Le Kellar also. We have that kind of fibula. And in Béziers were found in the same chronological horizon vestige of fibula manufacture comparable to those found at Vix, Bourges, or Lyon. I think the link and the relationship between Béziers and Bourges seem obvious to me, and even with Lyon. There are potter's kilns in Béziers and in Lyon, recently discovered from the 6th, 5th century BC, and it's the same production of grey pottery, including dish with marley. The old lamp that you see on the screen and all the pottery came from Bourges, the site of Port-Sec, and are related to the local production of Béziers. It can seem it's Massalian production, but what we study the pieces, it's not from Massalia, but it's from other places in the south that start to produce this pottery, this kind of pottery, in the 6th and at the beginning of the 5th century BC. So I think. So the use of the model of the princely residence seems interesting, even if it's just a way to think differently. What is obvious, I think, is hierarchical society and network of elites connected between them and connected especially to the rest of Europe. We must, I think, broaden the scope of our reflection and integrate the fact that all of Europe, from north to south or from south to north, was connected to an extremely complex network of exchanges in which the elites played a major role in the early Iron Age, and that the Mediterranean Celts were part of these networks. They are not only Greek settlement in the south of France, but Celtic settlement connected with these words. There were elites in the south, of whom we also know sculpted representation that are also that had also strong links with continental Europe. Thank you for your attention.